Gates crash back, they're off and racing. Renardeau, having spent ages trying to get into the stalls, was rather slow out of them as well. In the try-hour new price boosts at Unibet Handicap, we're over essentially a mile and a half here. And Later Darling, who ran prominently at Lingfield last time, is going to take up similar duties here to Land of Eagles, who races in second. Then Largo Bay in the black and yellow colours, who's in third. That's your leading trio. Then Roscioli in quite similar colours to Land of Eagles, so just now moves into third ahead of Largo Bay. They're then followed by Thunder Knight, who's in the, or Royal Thunder, I should say, in the green colours. Then after that, Renardeau, followed towards the outside by Sword Beach, and the last two at the moment, the pink colours there of the Thunderer, who was taken back early, and also taken back early the quarter jacket there of Heath Rise, as they make their way down towards the mile pole. Later Darling, out in front, leads by a couple of lengths to Land of Eagles, who's racing in second spot. Then Roscioli racing in third, followed then by Largo Bay, who sits in fourth. Royal Thunder is in fifth in the green colours. Then up the inside, Renardeau, the yellow sleeves, followed then by Sword Beach, who's just being snagged back a little bit through the field. Then Heath Rise and the Thunderer, who's still at the back as they make their way down towards the final 3/4 of a mile. And it's Later Darling, who hasn't had things too tough out on the lead here, still out in front to the tune of 2 lengths to Land of Eagles, who's been sitting behind there in second. They're then followed in third spot by Largo Bay in the black and yellow colours. Then in fourth spot, Roscioli, who's had a nice trail into this, followed then in fifth by Renardeau, who's got the rail. Then Royal Thunder, who's been that one's travelling companion throughout, followed then by Sword Beach, and Heath Rise and the Thunderer is at the rear of the field now. So they're taking a turn at the top of the track, heading inside the final 4 furlongs. And it's Later Darling, who still leads in the hands of Rob Hornby, to Land of Eagles, who's in second, followed then in third up the inside by Largo Bay. Then the fourth spot, Roscioli, who's still poised in fourth. Then up the inside, Renardeau, who's had that easy run right round the inner, followed then by the green jacket of Royal Thunder, trying to get a little bit closer now as Heath Rise. Sword Beach is being asked a question or two, and the Thunderer is still at the back of the field. Down towards the final 1/4 of a mile they go, and it's Later Darling, who's had a pretty easy lead, trying to find a bit more out in front. Roscioli now down the centre of the track, followed then by Land of Eagles. Getting going late is Renardeau as well, but it's still Later Darling who leads, the one they've all got to get past. Roscioli is trying hard. Land of Eagles is also throwing down a challenge towards the far side, racing deep inside the final half furlong. Later Darling by a diminishing margin, but a decisive one. Later Darling beats Land of Eagles, possibly Renardeau up for third there. Sword Beach probably in fourth too. No doubt about the winner though, Later Darling.
Rob Hornby has dictated affairs out in front on Later Darling, and in the end this horse has managed to hold on from Land of Eagles on the far side. The unlucky in running Renardeau under Ross Coakley just hampered in the closing stages. The head-on would be very interesting. Sword Beach was just in behind those, but Rob Hornby was keen once he got to the front on Later Darling just to steady things up, and you'll notice as the horses went out on the back straight, he was just trying to hold on in front and not use up too much energy, and had enough in hand turning for home, got a little bit of a lead on them, and then just enough to hold off the finishers. But keep an eye on the horse in the big white face in about 4th or 5th position in yellow sleeves, blue body. That's Renardeau, who is making his return after September 2021, his last run. That was when he was pulled up over hurdles. But there was a moment where it looked as if he was coming through with a really strong challenge. But just here, the winner eventually just rolls off, and then Land of Eagles is heading to his left, our right as we look at it. Closed the gap off there, and in the end he just couldn't get going in enough time, and I think Renardeau was a little bit unlucky, but there's no doubt that Rob Hornby has given the winner, Later Darling, a very good ride. You know the old cliches about, well, every winning ride's a good ride. Well, this was a pretty good ride, considering the way he dictated things out in front. When he got to the lead on Later Darling, he was able to just stack them up enough, press the button at the right time. It's one of those occasions where being out in front, doing what you wanted to do, was enough to get this horse home in front, and of course relied on a little bit of unlucky shenanigans for the third horse, Renardeau.
Yes, it's going to be an interesting race to try and unpick this one, because there was plenty happening in behind Later Darling, who had that uncontested lead and never saw another rival in the end, taking it from the start here, Rach, and yeah, broke pretty well, did Later Darling, which definitely helped.
Yes, it did, because there was a couple of others who kind of got pinchered up, the likes of Heath Rise and Sword Beach to an extent out of the gate. The Thunder are also all ones that just got a little bit pincher movement, whereas Largo Bay down on the inside had a good break and went to the front until Rob Hornby decided to use the same tactics as last time and take Later Darling around. A little bit unlucky for him. He kept desperately looking because he didn't want to go into the first half of the turn 3 wide, but luckily Largo Bay pulled back. Land of Eagles was over, so he was only 2 wide throughout, and then he gets the gap, the railing, and basically it's him all the way around. They're going a decent enough tempo. He's leaning in on Rob Hornby. He is a free running sort. I mean, the interesting thing is after he won, Rob was struggling to pull him up, and coming back to go into the chute, he was sort of struggling to kind of get him under control. He's a horse that 1.5 miles may not be his limit. There's a lot of petrol still in the tank.
Yeah, he's just a bit of a keen girl generally, I think, isn't he? And he doesn't seem to affect his performance too much. Steve, a good performance, wasn't it? I mean, we'll talk about the unlucky misfortune of Renardo in a moment or two's time, but that uncontested lead has definitely been a reason, a factor at least, towards the victory, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't fancy Later Darling. I was surprised that this horse was favourite. I thought it was given a really good ride by Rob Hornby last time at Lingfield. You're stepping up to 1.5 miles, and I think we've got another good ride. And again, you can have a soft lead to your detriment. If you're not taken on and you're on a horse like this who clearly stays the 1.5 miles really well, if you go slower fractions, then there's a fair chance that you're going to be outspeeded if you've got simply quicker horses behind you. But Rob Hornby set a decent tempo, and the horse has seen it out. I think he's just a progressive horse who's well treated, and the hood that he's worn the last twice, and this was the 3rd time he worn it, it's clearly had a positive effect, and that you could make a case for that there were horses unlucky in behind, but he set those good tempos and he's still galloping at the end, and I think he'll stay a bit further. Sword Beach just wasn't quick enough, was probably not in the right position, got shuffled back a little bit and came winging down the outside, and the horse in the yellow cap there, who'd been off for a long time, Renardo, again, traffic problems might have cost him victory, might have, but the winner is definitely one on merit, and if you go out in front you don't get traffic problems and you can set your own pace, and with a guy like Rob Hornby who continues to impress wherever whether he's riding in Group 1s or whether he's riding in 1.5 mile races at Kempton on a Wednesday night, he's a very reliable jockey these days.
Yes, let's just have a look at this head on then, Rach, and Renardo looking for that gap, just doesn't quite get it.
No, I mean, it didn't help that Land of Eagles came over about 2 paths and sort of blocked the path when his head got in it. He had to take up a bit, and 1.5 mile horses like this, particularly coming off a lot of breaks, if you're stopped in the run, you're going to have a bit of an issue with it. I mean, I would suggest that the stewards will be unofficially having a look at the 2nd and 3rd, because nowadays it seems like there's a lot more stewards' inquiries that happened that didn't actually bing bong on track to let you know they were having them when you read the steward's report afterwards, which annoys me to no end, because if you're going to have an inquiry, let the world know you're going to have an inquiry. But that's just one of my little petty gripes with it.
Always nice to hear a couple of gripes on a Wednesday night at Kempton. Later Darling, the winner though, son of Postponed, does the business and wins for the first time. Rob Hornby doing the steering, 5-2 favourite for Amanda Perrett. 2nd was Land of Eagles, 7-1. 3rd was Renardo. That was a big run, an unlucky one potentially as well, 80-1. And the winning time was 2:34.28, 2.78 seconds above standard. That was fairly quick in terms of the times on the night. Let's get to Rishi with some winning reaction.
Well, it's always nice to speak to winning riders after their successes, but particularly so when they've produced a smart bit of skill in winning that race. Are you proud of that ride that you gave that horse, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, he's a horse that you can't really do a lot with in terms of trying to tell him what to do. You've got to try and work together, and he's a bit of a youthful teenager. He likes to get on with it, and it's just a case of trying to just dampen him down, dilute him a little bit. And I was always a bit conscious that he was doing plenty enough on the front end. And Lingfield the last day, he was not unlucky, but just bumped into one on the day, and I think he got caught out a little bit at Lingfield running down the hill, more of a speed track, whereas here the stamina really came into the fore, slightly slower surface. And no, just delighted the owner to we're very pleased, and it's nice to put a smile on their faces.
Yeah, I did notice as you went down the back straight, you probably wanted to go a stride slower. He was still moving probably that little bit more keen than you ideally want. But I love the way he picked up in the straight, and when you press the button, he put a couple of lengths on them. But were you always confident you were going to hold on?
Yeah, that was the case really today. He changed his leads going down the back and actually gave me half a chance, even though I'd like him to come back a little bit more. But then he's a big horse with probably quite a smart engine, and he stays quite well, so I didn't want to then slow the pace down too much because it'd take a long time for him to get back up into top gear. So it was a case of making sure and seeing if he did fully stay whilst doing plenty, and he has done, and full credit to him, because nothing came that close to him, but I felt he would have found a bit again if he had been seriously challenged.
Did that on purpose, did he? Very good ride, well done.